The Roman Josi Brady Skjei experiment did not work out this season. We'll tell you where the Predators need to go from here with these two top defensemen on and off the ice.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off our episode today, giving a shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders and to our everydayers who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us Monday through Friday. I'm Kimmel. I am a writer and co-host with Penalty Box Radio, and friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Emma Lingan, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, Emma, there were plenty of concerns after a profoundly disappointing Nashville Predators season, and near the top of the list was the play of two of Nashville's key defensive pieces. Today, we're going to review the season that was for Roman Josi and Brady Skjei. We're going to tell you what Nashville needs to do and where they need to go from here when they need to get the most out of these two defensive pieces. Before we dive into all of that, I do want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Emma, we are talking about Roman Josi, the captain, Roman Josi. And look, let's just start with the elephant in the room and talk about the fact that at the end of the season, towards the end of the season, Josi suffered another concussion. And, he missed the last 25 games after being boarded by, we saw it, we know, Sam Bennett in a hit that Andrew Burnett, I thought, very graciously called reckless. I would have called it dirty and get into my invisible backpack of hockey grudges, you absolute punk. But, potato, potato. What is your concern level? Let's just start right there. What is your concern level with Roman Josi moving forward, having another concussion? This is not his first head injury. Where are you at with Roman Josi?
I mean, anytime head injuries are involved, my concern level is going to be fairly high. And by concern level, I don't necessarily mean their availability right now or in the immediate term. My concern level, will Roman Josi be able to play this season? Like, I have zero concern about that. Of course he will. He's told us he will. We have no reason to believe that he won't. But as far as his longevity, as far as my concern level about him getting another head injury, and we have a Mark Borowiecki situation where the next one could be the one that does you in, like, that is what's more concerning to me. So of course I'm concerned about his health, his long-term health, but I think in terms of his availability, not just availability, but his ability to be impactful, in this coming season, I'm not concerned about that.
Yeah, it's two very different sides of the coin because, like you said, on the one hand, it is very concerning that he has had multiple head injuries. And you and I have talked about this, I think, on the show. I know you and I have talked about this off the show, but having had a concussion from a takedown gone wrong in a grappling class, those bad boys are no joke, and they are cumulative. And it's something that, you have to be mindful of when it comes to Roman Josi. But I agree with you. When we're looking at, oh my gosh, what does this mean for Roman Josi next season? Hear us say he will, be ready next season. And he talked with us at Locker Room Cleanout about just the very involved protocols and the rehab that they have for a situation like this where somebody has a concussion or a head injury and he's going through that program. Then there is the part of me, the mom in me, that's like, Roman Josi, you do not want to forget your children's names when you are 45. So there's two sides to that where he is going to play, he is going to be impactful. I don't believe that this is going to dramatically limit his abilities on the ice, but long term, I hold my breath a little bit when it comes to seeing Josi take hits now. And, what that means for stats, what that means for team success, I don't know. But it is something that I think we all just have to be mindful about when it comes to Roman Josi and, longevity in the league. This season, like we said, he missed 25 games at the end of the season. He played 53 total games this season, 9 goals, 29 assists, 38 points. Here is an interesting stat. And again, when we share an interesting stat, it is a number in a vacuum. It doesn't tell you everything. So we know that. We're not just pulling one stat and then telling you a whole story about that. But I just think this is interesting. He was minus 4.4 goals above expected. And that is one of those things that you have to remember about Roman Josi. He is an elite defenseman. He finished second in the Norris Trophy voting last season. But this guy is key offensively for the Nashville Predators. And neither side of his game really took off this season. How much of that, Emma, do you think, especially let's talk defensively, happened because the Brady Skjei Roman Josi experiment went the way of the Matthias Ekholm and Ryan McDonough kerfuffle debacle?
Honestly, I don't really attribute it to that, to Brady Skjei specifically.
Right.
I personally think if you have two defensemen of that caliber, you want them spread throughout. You want one of them on the top pair, one of them on the second pair. Of course, you do your due diligence. You try it. You try them together. It doesn't work. Okay, we move on. So I don't necessarily know that Brady Skjei was ever the right defenseman to pair with Roman Josi because of the style of play. And I just think with Roman, you need a more like traditional stay at home defenseman. And that's not Brady Skjei, and that's fine. He's very good at, doing other things like quarterbacking the power play, and he's got other strong suits. But I think that as far as Josi struggles, again, we said this when we were talking about UC Saros as well, that it's like you can't expect like one guy to have an amazing year when literally everyone else on the team is struggling. And I think, Roman is, they're fortunate in that he is the kind of guy who can rove, he can play. He doesn't really have a side. He plays both sides. He can do them both well. He quarterbacks your power play. He's consistently one of your top scorers, which again, if a defenseman is one of your top scorers, that's maybe not always a good thing. Nashville, to Barry Trotz's credit, he tried to address that this offseason and it did not pan out. So,
Right.
again, I think it's one of those where like this team is used to relying on guys like Roman who can just take over a game and they can, help steal games for their team. And he wasn't able to do that. And, for 25 games, he quite literally was not able to do that because he wasn't on the ice. So it's really hard for me to make any kind of like sweeping conclusions about Roman Josi after this season in particular.
I think it's hard to make any sweeping conclusions about a player, any of the players really after the season we saw. I also think, and this is a podcast for another day, but I'm throwing out there, I think it's very difficult to set expectations for this team for next season. Of course, we're going to wrestle with that a little bit later on in the off season. Emma and I are going to suffer great angst trying to nail Jello to that wall. But I agree with you. I think it's really difficult to say, look at Roman Josi. What do you take away from this? and what does he need to do better? There are some things that I think across the board are true. Here is the moment where I felt like, oh, I don't know how this is going to turn around for Roman Josi. And I know part of this is hindsight, but in that moment, I was like, huh. And when Barry Trotz traded Dante Fabro, when it felt like the Skjei and Josi pairing, it just wasn't clicking.
Didn't trade him, mind you. Did
Didn't
not
trade him.
trade.
I
Put him on waivers. Even worse.
Even worse. I revisionist history trying to make it better than it was, friends. It was so bad. Put him on waivers. If you look back, Roman Josi played some of his best hockey with Dante Fabro, who, by the way, as if being on waivers wasn't painful enough, was a healthy scratch all the time. Not all the time. That is hyperbole, but very, very often he was a healthy scratch. And that's the moment when I'm like, but you know something about the two of them. You know something about those two together, and you didn't put it back out there to try it. And that was the moment where I thought Roman Josi is gonna they don't have it. They don't have it. They don't have what they need to play with him. I think offensively, Roman Josi got caught up in that deferring. And that's something that I think a lot of players who didn't generate a lot offensively fell into that trap. I also think there's something that we need to look at when it comes to off ice. Does this season lean into what I think is a false narrative about Roman Josi and leadership? We're going to talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every single night is delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it is that game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have many more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you're new to FanDuel, don't worry. It is the perfect time to sign up. You can head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you are going to get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Emma, we don't have to hit on this one hard because I will literally pull my hair out and I will say words that Minka will not be pleased with. But you know that there is a group of people who believe that because Roman Josi does not rage against the machine and spit when he yells and I don't know, towel smack people around the locker room, that he maybe is not the right choice when it comes to being the captain of this team and leadership of this team. You bring in a Steven Stamkos, you bring in a Jonathan Marchessault, you bring in a Brady Skjei, these veterans with experience, and it kind of fell apart. How much of that do you lay at the feet of Roman Josi as the captain?
None.
Thank you. If you all are listening on audio, you might have missed the eye roll, but it was epic.
I don't know. It was so big that you might have been able to hear it, quite honestly.
You might have heard the wind blow, the wind shift. Yeah.
None. No.
None.
I think also I'm still laughing at the visual of Roman Josi trying to towel slap people because he'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so
Excuse
sorry."
me.
But no, I think like the captain is chosen. Like the captain is the captain because he leads by example on like the way that he conducts himself. And I think Roman Josi is exactly what you want in someone, like the way that he conducts himself. He is poised, he's professional, he is great in the community. He is one of their best players, so he's leading with how he plays on the ice as well. Now, just because, there's more than one way to be a leader. Like you said, you don't have to be loud, you don't have to scream, you don't have to be angry. I just think that there's different kinds of leadership. And again, it's not a dictatorship. It's not like he's the only one in there who anyone listens to. I mean, they have a leadership group, a formal leadership group with Ryan O'Reilly and Philip Forsberg. But then you have I would say, the auxiliary leaders, guys like Colton Sissons and Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Michael McCarron. All guys have leadership roles in different ways. And so I think that I think that more of this falls on the coach than anything, because if you're seeing this unfold, that, oh, everyone's deferring to one another, you know what? First of all, they may not even realize that they're doing it. Like, it might be happening subconsciously. So you need to point it out, and you need to at least, like, maybe that's what you do as the coach. Maybe you have to acknowledge it. You point it out and say, hey, this is a problem. You give them a chance to fix it. If they don't, then you step in as the coach. But as far as, the respect that these guys have for Roman Josi, I mean, it is off the charts. It's unmatched. And I think one of the strengths in his leadership is the fact that he isn't a dictator about it. And he leaves space for everyone to have a voice. But I think it's on the rest of the team, and, collectively, that includes Josi, it includes everyone, to figure out, okay, yes, everybody has a voice and everyone's voice matters. But at the end of the day, whose voice are we, like, who are we following into battle here? And I don't even think that has to be Roman Josi every time. I just think that there needs to be a clearer chain of command, I think. And if these guys aren't going to be able to figure it out amongst themselves, which they sure didn't this year, then that's where I think coaching has to step in and be like, all right, here's what we're doing.
I'm still seeing it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, we can talk about Roman Josi's on ice performance and the things we want to see from him, but I don't know that we can do that as accurately until we see what Barry Trotz does in free agency, because he has said the priority for him is a right shot defenseman to pair with Roman Josi. And so, setting that aside, and even if we include that, I will tell you this. I think the biggest thing we need to see from Roman Josi next season is what you're talking about, that relationship building, that accountability. And accountability was tricky last season, not just because they were feeling each other out, but when you were going to hold another guy accountable, you want to be able to do that from a position where you say, I am doing the things. Now I need you to do the things. Friends, nobody was doing the things. And when you feel like you aren't playing your best game and you are messing up, it feels very difficult to call someone out for the same thing that you are struggling with. And so for me, I think the most important thing, the most important work for Roman Josi through the offseason, because this has to happen in the offseason, is going to be communication, relationship building, and frank conversations. And whether you like Roman Josi as a captain or not, I will tell you this: he is not afraid to have the hard conversations. Bless. One of the short ends of the captain stick is that after a horrible game, you have to talk to the media. And Roman Josi, of course, he's very media savvy, but he also will say some of the things. Now he doesn't say it quite like Jonathan Marchessault drops them, but Roman Josi will say some of the things. And I think the most important thing that the Predators need from him is that piece. The on ice portion of his game will come with his health and with the right partner. Coming up, we are going to talk about the partner that wasn't. We're going to talk about Brady Skjei. What was the difference between the start of the season and the way he ended the season? All right, Emma, we talked about Roman Josi. The plan was in pencil that Brady Skjei and Roman Josi were going to play together. Did not work. Brady Skjei had one of the most interesting seasons. And this is one of those players where I'm like, in all my free time, with all my extra energy, I would love to go back and rewatch him, strictly him, through these 82 games. Because, interesting fact, Brady Skjei played all 82 games this season, which for a defenseman is saying something because y'all, they dropped like flies. He played 82 games, 10 goals, 23 assists for 33 points. Here is one of those stats that you don't like to share, but he had the most defensive zone turnovers on the team and was 23rd in the entire league in defensive zone turnovers for a player. But I feel like this was the tale of two seasons for Brady Skjei. And when you say that stat, you think, oh Lord, what have we done? But I don't feel like, oh Lord, what have we done? I think we have a tale of two seasons here.
Yeah, and I think Brady Skjei is one of those players that, again, I've said it many times, but he came from such a different system in Carolina. They play man-on-man defense. That's how, I mean, we've seen it in this playoff run that's gotten them this far for Carolina. I mean, they smother opposing teams and limit their chances. And not saying that Andrew Brunette doesn't want his defensemen to play defense, but it's just different in the way he wants them to play it. They're not playing man on man. I just think that we need to allow Brady Skjei the grace to adjust to this system the same way this whole entire team did last year when Andrew Brunette first came in. It takes some time, and I do think we saw him improve towards the end of the year. And again, I think he'll get there. I really do. I don't feel any kind of looming regret over this signing. I think it's going to be a really good signing for Nashville. I think that, again, his problems are more just sort of illustrative of the problems of the entire team from this year. It has not gone well, and it's really hard and I would say unfair to make any kind of, grand assessment on an individual player after this season.
Yeah. I will say this for Brady Skjei, when I'm thinking of the veterans on this, on this team, the guys that have quite a bit of NHL experience, I feel like his was the season of the most growth and consistent growth. I really felt like his trajectory was the one where towards the end of the season, you felt like, okay, we know what we're going to get from Brady Skjei. We didn't land there really with any of the other veterans. And I think that was encouraging. He and Nick Blankenburg, of course, had some really great chemistry. I don't know that that's going to be your second pairing moving forward, friends. But I think he did a really great job on ice. I think he did a great job off ice because when Roman Josi went down, Brady Skjei finished the season as the defenseman with the most experience playing Andrew Brunette's system. Let that sink in. The most experience was the guy you signed last year on your defense. And I agree with you. I think the way that this season went, and especially looking defensively, looking at the injuries that they had, looking at the moves that Barry Trotz made, it's very hard to come away from this and go, you know what, Brady Skjei's a bust. It's also very difficult to come away from this and go, Brady Skjei is going to be locked in and he's going to be the guy. I don't know for sure what we're going to get, but I like where we left off with him. Here's the other thing. He's coming home with some gold. Brady Skjei won gold at Worlds. I think that, we talked about this. Elliot Friedman talked about this, how important that kind of hockey is for a player who has had a season like any Nashville Predator has had, is to be able to go to Worlds, play, compete well, and kind of find your own personal game, find your own personal joy again, to find your own personal groove again. And so I think it's going to be good. I am not super concerned about Brady Skjei, and I don't know that other people would say that, but I think Brady Skjei landed where you wanted him to land after the start that he had.
Yeah, I think if you don't continue to see improvement, that's where when you start to get super concerned. But again, I know I'm at an advantage. I covered Brady in Carolina for 2 seasons before I came to Nashville. I know what he's capable of. If you get him with the right defensive partner, you get him, I know what he's capable of, and he knows what he's capable of. And so I think that, it just give him some time. Just give him some time.
Yeah.
And I've said this before, but you look at his career, the worst seasons of his career in the NHL have been his first season with a new organization. He started in New York, then his first season in Carolina was took a huge dip, all of his numbers. First season in Nashville, same thing. So I think I will be surprised if we don't see, a quick upturn next year.
Yeah. We mentioned him playing with Nick Blankenburg. I will say this, I really like that he was able to be kind of that veteran presence. And not that Nick Blankenburg is completely fresh. He's certainly not. But I think you saw some really good things with Skjei that, Barry Trotz down the road long-term is going to want to see. And look, Brady Skjei is here for the long haul unless they trade him. And this is not a contract that I think a lot of teams are dying to get their hands on. But you need a Brady Skjei who will be able to take a younger defenseman and help them. And I think just the glimpse that we saw with he and Blankenburg, the chemistry that they were able to develop together, I think the way that they were able to communicate, the way they were able to kind of put something out of nothing together and become the top defensive pairing for the Nashville Predators, friends. I think that bodes well for Brady Skjei long-term for the Predators because they need him to be a part of the now and not yet. You need to be very, very good right now, Brady Skjei, but we also need you to help the other players who are the not yet guys who may make an NHL debut defensively next season. And that is one of the other things I really like about Brady Skjei going forward.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell he's very well respected by his teammates. Guys listen to what he has to say. I think that, again, it's kind of the whole on the plane, put on your own mask before helping those around you. It's kind of how I feel about him is you got to let him get into the system a little bit first and then, then see how he impacts. And I think the fact that he was able to help others with their masks this year, even while he was, getting his own mask on, I think it speaks volumes about him. And again, my concern level for him is not high at this point.
Yeah. There are a lot of concerns defensively, and we're waiting for Barry Trotz to address those when it comes to free agency. We're going to see what he does and what he pieces together from the Predators. We're going to see some of these guys return from injury as well on the blue line. So it's going to be very interesting to see what this Predators defense looks like in training camp. Really can't even begin to speculate what it's going to look like. But I know that we are going to need Brady Skjei at his best. I think he is going to come into camp right where you want him to be. And I think Roman Josi is going to be back. He's going to be healthy in the short term, hopefully healthy in the long term. And I think just kind of carrying that leadership in a very different way with a very different looking locker room for the Nashville Predators. So here is hoping that these two guys on and off the ice are going to be ready to contribute again to Nashville turning something, dear God, anything around next season for us. We're going to be continuing our player reviews and looking at these players and their role moving forward for the Nashville Predators. So make sure you stay tuned to Locked On Predators as we work through this. Emma, before we log off today, will you let everyone know where they can find you and your work?
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingan. I apologize. I just started losing my voice there. And you can find my work at the Hockey News.
Emma just hit puberty right here in the middle of this episode, everybody. You can
Surprise!
find surprise. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio. You can find me online at @NK_Mama on Ice. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Again, thanks so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are going to be back tomorrow with an all new episode. We will see you then.